Okay, hello everybody. Welcome back to Speed of Fear. How fast did you get here? So, in this video, this is my Survivors Roundup. We're going to go over everybody in the main series who has seen Chucky as a living doll and survived. So, let's start off. We're going to go movie by movie. Let's start with the first movie. I find this one interesting because it has a few of the biggest question marks for our survivors. Obviously, we have Andy, who survived up until now. We know where he's at. He's locked in an insane asylum. Might be charged for these following murders that happened in Cult of Chucky. So we'll see where he ends up. Then there's Karen, his mother. So we know she's alive because Andy was talking to her in the after credit scene of Curse. We don't know where she is, how she's doing, how she's coped with all of the, everything that happened from back in the times of the first Child's Play movie, and losing her son for years and having him in foster care and what he's dealt with. But I would assume that she's well if they're having dinner and Andy's okay. We know he's a survivor, can handle himself with a gun, so she might be in a similar position, you would think, if she knows it was real, she knows it happened, and she would support and want to protect her son and herself. Alright, so all the two other survivors from the original Child's Play are Detective Mike Norris and his partner, Detective Jack Santos. We have no idea what happened to them. They have not been mentioned at all in any of the following movies. And I mentioned in my last video, maybe Mike Norris, he could have ended up, that there's no answers to all of the murders that happened because he can't pin it on Chucky. In the end, Mike says to Jack, "You believe me now?" And Jack goes, "Yeah, but who's going to believe me?" They can't tell their department what really happened, so I don't know. It's unlikely that would get them kicked off the force. They're not going to take the fall for it, but they also don't have hard evidence to pin it on Andy or Karen, so maybe their careers didn't go too well. I would really like to see Jack Santos back. He wasn't the most fleshed out character. He wasn't the most amazing actor in that movie. He wasn't bad, but all the main characters were really good. He just didn't stand out as much, but I found him an interesting character because he's sort of wisecracking. He was the very last person to even believe what was happening. So I would like to see how he has changed since the events of the first Child's Play. Alright, moving on to Child's Play 2, the only survivor other than Andy is his, at the time, foster sister, Kyle. We never find out Kyle's last name, but we do know that Kyle comes back. She was in the post-credit scene of Cult, because everybody loves post-credit scenes now. So she'll presumably be back for the television show or the next movie. I assume in a much larger capacity too, in the same way that Andy was, because it's going to be tough for him to get out of an asylum on his own, or maybe Kyle will have to, there's all kinds of routes they could take with her, so she will be back. At least I'm hoping. I would think so. what she's been up to from in all that time, we don't know. She apparently still loves leather berets, which, you know, that's cool. Rock your style, do you? But other than that, we don't know much about her. I continue on. Child's Play 3. Again, other than Andy, the only survivors who saw Chucky walking and talking were Andy's love interest of that movie, Kristen De Silva, and the young boy who Chucky tries to inhabit, Ronald Tyler. I'll start with Ronald because his would probably be a little more straightforward to guess because he was already in military school. His father was in the military. This is all just speculation, but what I would think would happen with Ronald would be they would just move on. Him and his father, they would move on from the horrible night or weekend that Chucky was at the military academy and just go on with their life, pretend like it never happened. Presumably, Ronald Tyler would enter the military and himself become, I don't know, some sort of soldier, I would think. So he would, he would be well equipped. One would think, if Chucky were to come back and come after him or his friends. And then there's Kirsten, again, someone who was doing very well in military school, would be able to handle themselves, you would think, in later life. It seems like Kristen and Andy, of course, weren't, what do they call that? Endgame, the final ship, whatever, and that's fine. So she, I think, is the least likely of all the survivors to come back. There's no reason for her to come back. There's no connection other than to Andy if something happens again. If they bring back Ronald Tyler, then there would be a better chance of her coming back, and if he came back in a movie, because then the three of them would be in it together again, and it would make a little more sense. But I don't see her coming back. I would like at least if they did a couple sentences and dropped what happened to her somewhat, and how it worked out between Andy and her, when they went their separate ways. I would just be curious to find out. All right, moving on to Bride of Chucky. The only confirmed survivors at the end of the movie are Jesse Miller and Jade Kincaid, are two protagonists in that film. They got married and walked away from a crime scene. The lieutenant made it seem like he was that they would be fine, that they would get away with it, and everything would be okay. But when Glenn/Glenda wakes up and attacks him at the very end of the film, we don't know if Lieutenant Preston survives or not either. So perhaps their future rests on whether he survived, because if he didn't survive, they would still be on the run. I don't see what other option they have. It seems like they went on a killing spree, and there's no proof otherwise at this point. We do get an acknowledgement of them in Curse of Chucky. He mentions the Kincaids. I forget exactly how he words it, but it makes it seem like it was just some of the, history, the people he went after. He never confirms whether he, went back and killed them. It didn't seem like that to me, at least. So I think they're still out there, probably still on the run and hiding, and who knows where they are, but they could probably come back, I think. Okay, moving on to Seed of Chucky. This one's a little interesting. I don't believe there are any survivors that saw Chucky and Tiffany up walking and talking. We see them doing that in their movie form when they're on the film set, but they're in that situation they're presumably being controlled by puppeteers. That's not really them moving around and talking. It's just, it's just a film. So, but on the other hand, we do have Sykes, the British performer, ventriloquist who found and I guess you can say raised Glenn slash Glenda. He is the only survivor who's seen a, living doll. And he wasn't too shooken up by it. He could handle it. And he saw that there was, that there were, in his eyes there was money in it. This is an opportunity to him. So I think it would be interesting for him to come back because perhaps he could, if he finds out there's two other dolls that are living, what if he can get the whole set? He would be a megastar at that point in his eyes probably. And I thought the actor was, pretty good, pretty interesting. I thought it's sort of a off-brand Russell Brand. So if he came back, I think it would be cool. If we see a substantial plot with Glenn and Glenda, I think it could make sense for him to come back. He doesn't have to, but I wouldn't hate it. Now on to Curse of Chucky. The only main survivor from this one is the new protagonist, Nika Pierce. We know where she ended up at the end of Cult. Chucky basically won and possessed her. And they took off with Tiffany, leaving some living Chucky dolls scattered about. So I'm assuming when the show comes out in 2020, we will find out, that it's obvious we're going to find out what happens to Nika and Tiffany in the next story at least. I'll save what I have ideas what I think might happen or what I would like to happen, but I'll save those for later. Also in Curse, we have Alice. Her fate is a little ambiguous. Chucky did possess her for a little bit, but found that being in a human body, you can get hurt, which was inconvenient. They laugh about her being dead at the end of the film, but the only reason why I think her fate is ambiguous is because they pan over and the Tiffany's doll body, the old Tiffany, is laughing. Now we don't know if that is Tiffany split into multiple bodies like Chucky did, or perhaps I was thinking there's a small chance that that is Alice in Tiffany's old doll body. That probably wouldn't make sense because Alice has no reason to be a killer, to be a vengeful type of person. But we did see the actress who played Alice in a dream sequence of Nika's, and she pulled off the angry, vicious, vengeful look very good, I thought. So, who knows? If maybe she could come back, but I think she's dead. I think it's better off that way. I think the story makes sense that way. We already have Chucky inhabiting the body of one female, and it's a little strange. I don't think we need him in multiple females at this point. I think things are getting strange enough with the dolls and Nika, so I think if they threw Alice in there as a previous possession and current cohort, I don't know. I don't know if that would work for me. And Cult is a fast one to run through because there are no survivors. Cult is the first movie where Chucky really wins, I think, and it's really interesting to see it that way. It's fun. It's a good twist because I'm thinking back, how many other horror movies are there where the bad guy like truly wins. I mean, I say bad guy, where the antagonist truly wins. I'm not thinking of any. Maybe one of the Hellraisers or something, but I don't know. Anyway, this was just a quick run through of all of the survivors and where we either know they're at or where I think they could be at. Just some speculation on my part. So, anyway, that will wrap up this video. Thank you for listening, and come back for more Chucky and horror related videos. Thank you and good night.